Hello and welcome to today's video. Before we kick off, I have a Kickstarter that you really need to check out. Today's video you're going to see is all about the ultimate cheat for any dungeon master or game master for that matter. And part of it was inspired by this Kickstarter. This Kickstarter is produced by Nerdarchy, good long-time friends of mine. They run their own YouTube channel, of course, have been around for a long time. And what this book is that they're releasing, they're kickstarting, out-of-the-box encounters. Out-of-the-box encounters. Your party's walking down a road. You haven't got anything particularly planned. You want something exciting. You go to this book. Now, they have already been fully funded. In 2 days, as a matter of fact. They were fully funded in the first day. They're getting to the point now where they're unlocking all of the stretch goals. Why am I talking about this? Because I think that if you are a junior GM, you are busy learning the ropes, you're trying to uncover the secrets of running good games, this book is going to help you. If you're an experienced GM, this book is going to help you. You're going to dive into this book and go, oh, actually, I need an encounter. I needed this. Let me read this. Let me get some inspiration. Of course, it's compatible with 5th edition. We always need to make sure that that's the case. But they give you just the 1-page, 2-page little encounter. You're on the road, you hear this. This is a lovely example. This one, which you can find on the Kickstarter web page. The link's down below. Otherwise, just go and look for it out of the box. Encounters. This one is an Etten who's wearing a magic helmet of alignment shifting. It's a very interesting, very fun little opportunity. He has a jailbreak. So it just comes with a whole bunch of pre-made stuff. And of course, then if you go into the Kickstarter, there's all kind of backer rewards and that kind of thing. There's lots of contributors who've put this together, and there's a reason why I'm talking about it, because part of the stretch goals, which they've unlocked with craziness, part of the stretch goal is that there are certain authors who they've asked to write some things for if we make it to a certain target. So I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying that maybe, if we get there, things might happen. Anyway. It's an amazing Kickstarter to go and check out. Have a look at it. Out-of-the-box encounters by Nerdarchy. I cannot stress enough how useful this stuff is, just to dip in, just to get a little bit of inspiration, just to figure out what's going on, and show them some love. Certainly, Nerdarchy has been around and has given us so much inspiration over these years. I think it's a good thing to show them that we appreciate them. So, check out the Nerdarchy Kickstarter. As they say, for nerds, by nerds.
Psst, come over here. I've got a secret for you. But you can't share it with anyone. Don't even acknowledge my... Look away. That little old lady, she's watching us. She's listening in. I might have to kill her later. But just come down this dark archway into this forest with me quickly. I'll give you the secret. But, she's definitely listening on this. She's going to have to die. Probably in about 5 years of old age, but she's going to have to die. Forrest, now, secrets, yours. Let's go. Words later.
Hello and welcome to this episode of How to Be a Great GM. My name is Guy, and today we're looking at the ultimate cheat, the deepest, darkest secret that every game master and every dungeon master and every narrator and every storyteller and every person who's responsible for running a game should know. And these are not secrets necessarily. You can find them on the internet. There are other YouTube channels that have spoken about this before. But this, in my opinion, is the fundamental key to being a good storyteller. These 3 little words: pain, problems, and pressure. The 3 Ps, if you like. The principles around which we must persevere as people who tell other people stories. I can't think of any more P words that would work there. I try. So, pain, problems, and pressure. These are the 3 key words. You should have them tattooed on your forehead so that you don't forget them. Pain, pressure, and problem. Problem, pressure, pain. It is a combination of the 3. It is the escalation of the 3 that will create interesting, dynamic spaces and stories within which your PCs will wander around going, what the hell just happened? I don't know, but it was amazing. Let's jump right into it. Pain. Pain. Do you like pain? Will you scream for me? Maybe. Pain. If the player characters are too strong, they're killing everything, they're slaughtering all of your encounters, they just don't have any problems whatsoever. Make them pain. Give them more pain. Give them suffering. Make them stand back and go, wow, what happened? Why did the pain suddenly increase? Double the damage. Double it. Whatever your system. Double it. If the monsters are not being effective against the party, don't increase the number of monsters. That's not going to increase the number of the number of pain. Look at me. What's wrong with me today? It's not going to increase the amount of pain that the characters are suffering. Inept monsters that they hit, but they do little damage. The PCs ignore the damage. It's so minuscule that they don't run any risk whatsoever. Double the amount of damage that you're dealing. Don't just say, oh, okay, the monster hit you, it was 1d8 damage, or the monster hits you, now it's 5d8 damage. That doesn't make sense. Why would the monster suddenly have 5d8 damage? When you double the amount of damage, you need to account for it. The beast goes into a rage, the enemy starship seems to overcharge its weapon capacitors, and you notice that it is starting to take damage itself, but it fires, and it now deals 20d10 damage, as opposed to last round where it was doing 10d10 damage. Narratively account for it, but mechanically double it. And if it still doesn't work, double it again. Make the PCs terrified. There was an old expression Gary Gygax came up with in his book Master of the Game, which he released after having developed Dungeons & Dragons. He said the party should have a 30% chance of failure and a 70% chance of success, but they should feel as if they have a 70% chance of failure and only a 30% chance of success. Damage is something that you control. If you are like most GMs and you reskin your monsters, or you allow your monsters to be dynamic, they're not just the fixed static entries that they are in the various monster books. You take the monster and you say, no, a Klingon does not just do this amount of damage. No, an Orc does not just do this amount of damage. Over time, they learn to do more. They become more feral. They become invigorated with a tonic that the shaman has given them. If you take the monster manual as a starting point, as a guide, and then you start to increase those monsters, you start to make them more interesting by increasing the amount of damage that they're doing. A bunch of players will stand back if you are suddenly dealing more pain to their characters. They will stand back and go, whoa, this is terrifying. We now must pay attention. This is an epic fight. Not all fights need to be epic, however. If the PCs are too weak, if they are struggling, if they are near death, reduce the pain. Suddenly that Orc chieftain who is dealing out massive amounts of damage, the party is about to completely be destroyed. Suddenly the Orc stops. Prisoners or food. They stop dealing pain, they reduce the pain down, and now they drag the party away to be put in a prison from which the party can escape. Anything that allows the story to continue, to be more interesting. Apply that so it's more pain, less pain. And juggling it around, narratively speaking, allows for you to control the emotional state. You control the emotional state of the players and their characters. Oh my goodness, we're dying. Oh, we survived, but we barely survived. Now we've got to escape. Now we've got to do this. Now we've got to do that. In other words, PCs and players go into encounters not knowing what to expect. They're not going, oh, it's a bunch of goblins. All right, yeah, fine, we kill them all. They're going in going, it's a bunch of goblins. This dungeon master knows what they're doing. She's not afraid of teaching us a lesson. We're going in there cautiously. We're going to think about plans. We're going to think about how to, can we split the goblins up? Can we negotiate first rather than attacking first? Because this GM they're unhinged, man. They're unhinged. They will deal more damage if we're not careful. They will also play around with it and make sure that it feels as if it's part of the story. That's the key. That's the secret. is you're changing the amount of pain and you're using a narrative to make it feel real. No one knows what those numbers are. If you have a player sitting there going, well, a goblin can actually only deal 1d4 points of damage because they have a strength of 8, would you politely and very kindly off, because I would rather have someone who's here in the real world, and by real world I mean my game world, and in the game world goblins are variable creatures. Your player character is increasing in level. Why can't the goblins? Give me one reason why. Why? No, they can't. No, you can't. Aha! Shut up, take the damage, because I'm increasing the pain. Okay, don't be vindictive, be a nice GM. You are there not to kill the party, you are there to make sure that a good story happens. You are there to facilitate an engaging experience. And be part of that experience as well by learning to juggle the pain threshold. But we're not just talking about pain in combat. We're talking about pain in other ways. The party seems very laissez-faire with the NPCs that they're dealing with. The butler, they treat the butler as if they're just an NPC. Okay, we're going to increase the pain. The butler now starts to tell them a story of how they have a child. The child is suffering from a strange malady. The party doesn't care. They don't investigate the malady. They don't care about the butler or the child. The child is reborn as the ultimate evil and starts to slaughter everyone, including anyone that the PCs are close to. We will take the pain to the PCs if they're not aware. Of course, if the PCs are interacting with NPCs and they're forming good relationships and good bonds, that very same pain we want to reduce. We want to make it pleasure. We want to make it enjoyable for the PCs so that later on when we apply pain to those NPCs and we apply pain from a narrative perspective, from a political, from an emotional experience point of view, it has more efficacy. And we want it to be not necessarily in extremes, but we do want it to be very noticeable. That again keeps the players on their toes. Oh, well, we need to talk to the NPCs because if we ignore them, things are happening to them. They are alive. They need to be cared for. We need to build these relationships. Otherwise, they're just going to leave. By throwing in these pain points, by making sure that you increase it or you decrease it, you are keeping the space very dynamic. You're preventing the players from becoming complacent. You're preventing the story from becoming humdrum and mundane. Your PCs are powerful. Your NPCs are more powerful. Keep the tension high. Keep the emotions swinging. Oh my goodness, we're going to die. We're going to live. We're going to die. We live, but we go... Just keep it moving around. Keep it juggling around. Now, there's other channels out there that say, oh, have a scale, 1 to 5. 1 being no pain, 5 being lots of pain. Whatever works for you. I personally just keep it in the back of my head. Hey, I can increase the pain or I can decrease the pain. This is also not to say that if your monsters are being easily defeated by your player characters, that they always suddenly have to increase in damage. Sometimes you need encounters where the creatures are weak. A bunch of thugs attack your party. Your party is fairly powerful. The thugs didn't know that. But as a game master, you're also not going to have only thugs that are super high level attack a super high level party. Again, it feels unnatural. You will get a bunch of idiots who are desperate for money. They attack the party dispatches them easily because you have a dynamic world. Your pain is adjusted up and down depending on the situation and on the narrative. Now, if you have the party come across a bunch of low-level thugs who are easily defeated, let's turn to Hollywood. What happens? Of course the first thugs are easily defeated, but their boss is terrifying, or the minions, the henchmen of the boss, are bigger and better and stronger. So there's a ratcheting up of that pain. The tension is increased. Oh, look, more thugs from the White Hand. Oh, come on, we've defeated your last batch. You think we're going to suffer from... Holy crap, we're dying. We need to focus again. So again, it's that shifting around. I think you get the point about pain. Bring the pain. Bring all the pain. That leads us to problems. Problems are a very, very important aspect of the 3 Ps. Whilst pain allows you to control the emotions of the party in terms of tension, problems allow you to engage the party. Again, you're going to ratchet problems up and you're going to ratchet them down. Some should be hard, some should be easy. And you need to figure out the balance between every problem being difficult or every problem being easy. Switch it around, adjust accordingly. So, shifting targets. Let's look at combat, for example. That's where a big area happens where there aren't a lot of problems in combat. A lot of DMs will run a combat where it's lots of pain, but there are not a lot of problems. Oh, you're fighting in an open field. Okay, it's straightforward. There are no problems that are adding to the tension. There might be lots of damage coming in, so there is that kind of tension, but the field itself is relatively calm. Same battle, but now that's happening in a town, and the town guard are running around and attacking everybody. That's a potential problem. Or you're on an airship, and the airship is now on fire and about to fall out of the sky. That's a problem. That needs to be resolved. Or, in terms of shifting targets or hiding goals or disrupting plans, what happens if the party is split? Now, that same combat in a field where they're split on either side of a giant wall, the one normal party would be able to take out the bunch of goblins easily, but now those same goblins, you haven't increased the pain, but you split the party, so now there's only half the amount of party fighting against those goblins. The other half has to figure out, they have to solve the problem of getting around the wall. So they're not engaged in combat, but they're engaged in the encounter. That is something that's really powerful. Suddenly you're going, whoa, okay, hang on, we've got to figure this out. What if they're standing on a bridge over a giant chasm and lava is starting to rise up? That's a problem. What if the bridge is crumbling? That's a bigger problem. So it's an interesting way in terms of moving things around. If there's lots of illusion magic going on, if there's lots of little creatures, say there's 1,000 of them and the creatures start to build themselves up into a bigger creature, that becomes a problem. How do they stop that? So by hiding things, okay, we entered into this room, all of the doors seal shut. Okay, that's not a problem. The room starts to fill with water. It's a much bigger problem. Oh, and there's a crocodile that's now trying to snip at you, but every time it goes below water, because the water is murky, you lose sight of it. So we're hiding the goal. We're shifting the targets. That's a big problem, especially if that creature can now just snap at individuals randomly. That combat is no longer just a mundane, here you fight a crocodile, you fight the crocodile. Now it's much, much more interesting. But these problems also apply to role-playing situations. Well, yes, sure, the king has hired you to go on this job to find the princess. But the princess purposefully left the castle. She is definitely not wanting to return because she's on her own mission. The target has shifted. The adventure has suddenly become moved from mundane go rescue princess to, no, princess doesn't need rescuing. Princess needs help because she's going into a suicidal situation. And she will blame you if she dies and her father resurrects her. She'll say, well, the party didn't help me. So the target's shifted. Or perhaps the king says, go and find the princess, and they find that the princess is already dead, and they've been set up as being the ones who killed her. So the goals were hidden. So again, by shifting around your problem, by always complicating things, well, not always complicating things, but by complicating things, you start to create different situations. When you combine a major problem, you shift the targets, you disrupt the party, you split the party, you put the party in a fog, they can't see what's going on, and you increase the pain, it becomes a terrifying situation where there's lots of pain being dealt. They don't know where to go. They don't know necessarily what to do. They're forced to try and think out of the box. That's an incredibly, incredibly, incredibly terrifying space that you've put them in. Interesting. Because when we add in the last component, we get to the point where we can literally overload an encounter to being completely deadly or being completely mundane, and we need to recognize that we need to have both of them in there. So before we leave to problems, let's talk about having less problems. Sometimes when the party is journeying from point A to point B, you don't want to have 50 encounters. You don't want there to be lots of problems. You arrive at this large crevasse. It spans from one side of the mountains to the other, and you can see no way of passing it. That is a problem, for sure. What's the pain? Well, possibly falling down there. If the crevasse itself has got spikes at the bottom, the pain is potentially increased. If there's lots of wind blowing up from the bottom of the crevasse, well, the problem has now increased. Not only crossing it, but there's lots of wind. That's one way. If you want that to be an encounter in itself, if you want that to be a role-playing opportunity that has a lot of weight, a lot of meat to it, it's going to slow your story down, bearing this in mind. So maybe you decide you want the crevasse because you're going to use it later on, but you don't want it to be this major thing. So yes, there's a breeze blowing, and yes, there are spikes down at the bottom, but you can see a set of stairs that have been incised into the side of the cliff leading down to the bottom of the crevasse, where there's actually a tavern. You get to the bottom of the tavern without too much of difficulty. The stairs are broad and wide. They actually allow for horses to go down there. You get to the tavern. The tavern keeper is a friendly fellow who informs you that they built this staircase for people to cross the crevasse because a bridge was too expensive. The crevasse is no longer this gigantic problem. There's no hidden goal behind this. There's no shifting target. And then they get back up to the top on the other side and they have crossed the crevasse. It's a little narrative moment. It's created a bit of flavor in your world. And now, when the party comes back, if you want to, the stairs could be broken, the tavern on fire, and now there's a horde of harpies flying around, and the party have now got to get across that crevasse. Same situation, but you've now changed the problem, you've changed the potential pain, and so now it is a completely different encounter to the one that it was previously. It's very important to realize that by changing up and looking at the same encounter, you can completely revolutionize it. And then you add in the last component. Pressure. Making the harpies and a crevasse a problem, yes, it has increased it. Making those harpies super powerful, it's increased the amount of pain that's going to happen. So the pain and the problem is both high, but without any kind of pressure, there's still we don't have to go through the crevasse if we've got months to return to the king after having helped the princess reclaim the lost throne. We could go around the crevasse. It'll take us 3 weeks. That's okay. We'll go around it. We have a fight on a bridge where lava's rising, but the lava's rising at 1 centimeter a year. Well, we could fight here all day and not even notice. So pressure is a time frame. It's the stakes, and it is the opportunity for failure to be a reality. By applying the pressure to the situation really becomes intense. Imagine you've got huge amounts of damage. The party cannot see what's going on because they're in a hall of mirrors. There's crystals all over the place that reflect. So they don't know if there's one monster or if there's 50 monsters. But the monster seems to be able to strike out and hit the party and disappear again before the party can react. And the entire space, the crystals are starting to vibrate with the combat. And the mage has determined that when the crystals reach a certain frequency, all organic matter within that space will be liquefied by the harmonic resonance that's set up. And that's probably going to happen in the next 9 or 10 seconds, or 20 seconds, or 30 seconds, or hour, or 5 days, depending on how much pressure you want to put on the situation. Let's go back to that cavern, that crevasse that we were talking about with the stairs and the tavern. What happens if as the party gets to those stairs, the stairs are broad and wide, so no problem, but they're being chased by giant ogres who deal a vast amount of pain and who are quite literally only a few rounds behind them. They're 300 foot behind them. They're busy charging in. Now suddenly the pressure is on to get down those stairs. What then happens is the encounter starts happening on the staircase. Those same ogres are now fighting against the party on the staircase. The staircase is taking a strain. It's starting to crack. It's starting to crumble. So now the situation, the problem is becoming, if these stairs collapse, we're all going to die. The ogres are only one at a time, so the pain has reduced. And the pressure is, well, the stairs are collapsing. If the stairs collapse, we're all going to die. The ogres are still on top of us. So the pressure is no longer get away from it. It's now survive it and move off it before it collapses. So we can change those around. Time pressure from a role-playing perspective. My son has been poisoned and will die within the next day if you don't go and get the sacred flower from the top of that very far away mountain. The pressure, the time frame, the stakes, there's so much at stake. The entire kingdom will be lost. You are the last Jedi. If you disappear, all of Jedi life disappears. That's a huge amount of pressure. Vast amounts of pressure. At the same time, your time frames need to be logical. Go, my son will die in a day if you don't go and get the flower from the top of the mountain. The mountain will take you 3 weeks to climb. Well, there's no pressure. Sorry, kid, you're on your own. We can't help you. So looking at these options, pressure, pain, problems, by combining them together and by escalating one or two of them, you create these intense situations, whether it's a role-playing situation or a combat situation or any combination thereof. If you have all three of them at maximum, so there's a huge amount of time pressure, there's a huge amount of pain, and there are problems everywhere, you're going to have the most intense experience of your role-playing life. But you can't have that every single time because otherwise that becomes the norm. So you need to juxtapose that with incredibly easy stuff. You want to try and get past the city guard. The guardsman looks up at you. He's got a rusty sword. He's got all day to talk about this kind of stuff. And he just says, yeah, all right, give me 5 gold and I'll look the other way. It could be a very different scenario if the pain is huge. He's well armed with a magical sword. The problem is that he's totally loyal and he'll never let you past. And you're being chased by the other city guard and you need to get through that doorway. Very different encounters. Think about it. So for me, this is the ultimate cheat. This is the ultimate opportunity for you as the game master. You are running your game. You realize the party is just having too much of an easy time. Your story isn't as exciting as you were hoping it was. You can change these 3 things. There is no rule saying that as the party gets to the bottom of the cavern, you decide to add in a problem. And that's a flood that is now coming down that crevasse. Or you decide the pressure is important. The crevasse starts to close because of some unknown effect. It's unknown for now, but you know, or you will work out after the session, that there is actually a geomancer who's closing up that crevasse because he hates the innkeeper. So you've started to apply these things before you even know what's necessarily caused them. You can work them out. Some, like the pain thing, you need to figure out during that situation so you can describe what's happening. The mage drinks a potion quickly. It's a free action. He turns into a giant mutant mage, which is now casting two spells around. Whatever. Some of the things you can apply immediately, some of them you need to think about, and you can do so in your own time out of game. So this, if you can master this, your encounters, your role-playing experience is going to be one hell of a roller coaster ride. Your PCs are going to walk out of it going, holy smoke, what happened? And the next time you decide, I'm going to have a little encounter, it's a bunch of thieves. Play around with these, the 3 Ps, pain, problems, and pressure. Mix them up and say, well, how can I add some pressure to this situation? How can I make it a problem? What kind of problem can I give them? What's the pain? Do I need lots of pain or little pain? Something to think about. Add this to your arsenal, and you will be a great GM. I guarantee it. Until next time, however, I wish you and yours the very happiest of gaming. All right, so you liked that secret. I'm glad. But if you subscribe for 5 gold a month, I'll give you even more secrets. You know how you're going to know about that? You know, I'm going to get. I've got 4 different options here for you. They're little bells, and whenever the bell rings, it means I've got another secret for you. So you should come along and have a look here in the forest with me. Yeah, let's do that. But don't make your problems my problems, right? So keep it on the down low. Don't share it with anyone. Don't tell anyone about this whatsoever. It's just our little secret, right? Yeah, good. Okay, till next time then.